Real surprise.
Thank you so much, Brent Batson, for joining us. Of course, Brent is the road safety coordinator for the Trinidad Tobago Police Service. All
Good
right.
morning, Brent. Long time no
Good
see
morning,
here.
everybody.
New
Yes,
year.
good to see everybody.
Morning to you.
Yeah,
Glad to be
but
with
we
you.
can't say the same.
You are fair enough, fair enough.
We want
All
to
right.
talk a
Well,
bit
thank you
about
so
the recent, is it gazetting of the Tint Laws
Right.
that circulated? Is it last week or week before? And
Yes.
give us a sense of what that means, because we would have spoken to the transport commissioner a couple of
Yes.
weeks ago, who gave us some revelations that surprised many of us, that officers could
hmm
not instruct you to take off your tint and la di da di da. And then we saw this gazetting of this new law slash regulation. Could you first of all state what it is and what it means for the driving public?
Right. So the windscreen and window tint regulations, well, the amendment was what was passed to in recently. I think it was like a week or two, about a week ago. So what happened was that the original windscreen and window tint regulations had to be amended because there was an issue with regards to how a certain phrasing of the law was put into place with regards to um, putting the burden on the driver of the vehicle to carry that exemption certificate, and where the exemption was given to the vehicle and not to the driver. But some part of the law that they had to work out. So that was, and as a result of that um, flaw, it was shelved until the amendment was made. The amendment was completed, so now it's gone into what they call the ninth schedule of the Road Traffic Act, which makes it enforceable. Now, that being the case, and I want everybody who's listening to understand, yes, in law it is enforceable. However, there are a lot of administrative things that still have to be put into place before enforcement can take place. The last conversation I had with the transport commissioner as well as the Ministry of Works and Transport was that they are seeking to commence a parallel sensitization program again, so that persons are made aware that what the levels are. And just to remind everybody, so what the law has done is remove subjective application of the law, whereby officers are looking into that vehicle and then assessing how dark they think the tint is, and put in a quantitative level, which is now corroborated by an approved device, what we call a tint level meter. And this now will verify whether or not it's compliance with the law. So these tint level meters, they measure what they call VLT, which is visible light transmission or transmissibility, and that determines how much light actually passes through the glass. So with the amendment now, they put, for example, your front windscreen, you're allowed 70% VLT, your driver and front seat passenger, 35% on those windows, and 20% on anything to the rear of the driver and front seat passenger in those windows. If persons think that they may have a reason for an exemption where they need darker tint, then they need to go on the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Works and Transport website, download the exemption application forms, and forward their reasons for the exemption request to the Transport Commissioner. He alone is the person to grant that exemption, whether
Are
it's
there
medical.
the criteria for those exemptions?
Well, yes, you're right. So there's one is, for example, medical reasons. And I'm glad you asked that, because with the medical reasons, it's now limited to really two sets of medical specialists before. So a general practitioner has been removed from writing on any of these applications, and it has to be either a ophthalmologist, you must have some sort of eye issue, or a dermatologist, so a skin issue relating to heat. As we know, I'm sure all of us know persons with those types of medical issues, and so those are genuinely So he needs to supply that evidence, and the evidence can only come from a specialist. So I want to make sure everybody's clear. You cannot go to a GP, a general practitioner, for any tint exemption. It must be ophthalmologist or dermatologist, and it's listed
So,
in the tint regulations. In
so
addition, you can
a psychologist can't give you an exemption in that your life might be at risk or something.
right. So the other exemption is security reasons, right?
Mhm.
And that's a separate exemption form. So whereby you're stating your reason is security reasons. For example, let's say a threat. Yeah. Let's
Mhm.
say your family, or you have, a lot of people are doing Facebook marketing from home, and they're bringing in a lot of products, and they're actually rolling around with these products in their vehicles. It's funny you mentioned that. Yesterday I saw TikTok where a young lady who imports expensive audio amps was circulating her making her deliveries. And she really has to be very careful on putting that information out there, because like I said, unfortunately you can easily make yourself a target. Yes, you're trying to market your business, but I think you can market it without you showing that you're moving around with over $10,000 of equipment in your car and driving on the road to make your deliveries. So um, the point is, you can apply for exemption for that reason. You're carrying goods, so you need you don't. There's some cars, as you don't have a trunk, like the station wagons just have this back glass, and side glass, which makes persons able to see what you have in the trunk. So
Mhm.
that might be a reason. And if you have any other reason, then you
You,
can apply it as well. I'm not too sure
Brent,
about the psychologist though.
you can actually get an exemption for what you just described it to hide your goods in your vehicle.
Well, again, remember it's a case by case basis. So, for example, is it a registered business? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You'd have to
Mhm.
supply the evidence to back up your request. The Transport Commission might request sales, some sort of ledger, whether or not a limited liability or your sole proprietor, and then your bank account sales might have to be produced to him for him to say, well, actually, you do have a legitimate business operating.
Yeah.
Why
What?
is that
But do you
Trinidad
have
is
those
why
meters?
is it that Trinidad loves to give the authority to one person to approve things like that? It
Well,
always befuddles me. I'm like, always, why is it always one person? So that one person have nothing to do but sit down and sign off on exemptions? Why they don't make it like a body or a group of people so that any two
Our
people can
colonial
sign off?
past. We like
Yeah.
kings and queens.
Well, well,
Maybe
what
it's
what
that.
Well, I'm not. It may be. And I just want to be clear that the transport commissioner has that under him set up, and then it's forwarded to him as the final person to say, well, okay, we review these applications, and this is what we've recommend. Yeah,
So he's just
So
stamping off. He's just signing off.
he's just signing off. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I just want to mention, since you guys brought it up, there are a lot of persons, who have been even contacting, my office and saying, hey, I want to get temp exemption. What's the procedure to do that? And, don't get me wrong. You may have legitimate reasons for that, but I want everybody to just think about this for a minute. Once this become operationalized, if you have tint darker than what is being permitted, you are guaranteed to give yourself a headache in any road check exercise. So be careful what you ask for, because it means you will be stopped because you're going to be standing out like a sore thumb. And then the officers will now have to verify that your darker tint matches the exemption levels permitted by the transport commissioner. So you're going to cause yourself to stay longer in that road check exercise.
mm. Brent, but do you
Well, I
currently
can't
have
think that
these
every road
meters?
check. I can't think that every road exercise that we meet, they're going to be checking for tent. The
No, no, no.
TTPS have nothing else to do
No,
but do that.
no. Hear me out, sir. And this one I want to be clear, right? So let's. I'll share this information where persons have been, um, kind of saying, well, everything is revenue generation. This is one area that I would say is definitely an anti-crime measure, because nearly in all the cases where even firearms offenses were committed with vehicles, there were reports of heavily tinted vehicles. Even casing before, checking around the area, even persons calling in, a white Tita, heavy tint, Almera. So you're going to find it will have some benefit. A lot of what is like, I heard that caller, if you'll permit me to just link back to that caller who was complaining about the bus route, right? And the enforcement. And he's 100% right. I mean, the ultimate goal is more automated enforcement, which frees up, police officers and stuff for more anti-crime operations. That being the case, and we know it's being phased in, and trust me, there's a lot of infrastructural and back end issues to implement, but it's definitely coming. I'm sure a lot of you all have seen the one by Dock Road, which has been successfully deployed. If I'm not mistaken, there are plans to actually operationalize a couple more intersections before the end of the year. But
Brent,
these measures,
That one by Dock Road, there since 2010 or 2011 or something like that.
yeah,
That
and they had to swap it out. Actually, you'd see there was that one that used to flash. You remember that that used to
yes.
flash, right? And now there's actually a new set of cameras which are which also take the picture, but you don't find they're so they're more covert in how they operate. Also they're more there are other what's the word I want to use, security features that the cameras now have, that will have a little bit of what was the word, you will see as the cameras deploy, there is some more technology out there that's definitely going to help. But everything will come in a
So,
phase basis. Mhm.
so we swap something that we never use, we never
Right.
operationalize, we swap it
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. No. So again, because the technology, unfortunately, at the time when the first, and you're talking about over 10 years ago, when the first set of technology was acquired, it was actually spec'd out to a type of radar camera that is no longer even used. It's not even used anymore, because there are a lot of issues with it. So unfortunately, luckily it was just one that really became operational. So it's yes. So to answer the question, yes, that is definitely what happened there.
Brent, with regard to the tint and the percentiles allowed,
Hmm.
was it changed? Were any of those percentiles changed,
No
or the range increased in terms of the recent gazetting?
amendment.
And
No, it wasn't.
okay,
No, it wasn't. So yeah. So what's their stance? And as we told, and I'm glad y'all are raising this, because I would hope that persons utilize this time to go and get their vehicles sorted. Don't wait when it becomes enforcement to suddenly scramble. Go to a tin shop, one of those that has a meter, because if they do have a meter, I don't know how they're going to double check. A mistake people make, for example, is that they're going to a tin shop and asking for 35% on the front window. Great. Yes, that's correct. The law says 35%. However, your vehicles are manufactured with already a film of tint on it. So when you drop 35 on it, it actually drops to about 32. So you need to double check post implementation of that tint onto your glass, that it is in compliance. And the only way they can do that is if that shop has a tint meter.
you know what I also find objectionable on a certain level is that you have vehicles that come in with tints on the rear window, the rear windscreen, that's what they call it, and
Yeah,
the back windows. They come manufactured that way,
yeah,
and they are owners, and they're main distributors of vehicles that come that way. And
yeah,
and I'm just saying, why is it that there not be a list with licensing that says, okay, for these particular vehicles, we know they come with a manufactured tint. rather than requiring the citizen or resident to go and get an exemption if it's beyond the limit for the vehicle when you already know that it comes that way. And that's the kind of bureaucracy that irritates me, and why I say so many times there are measures that are not citizen friendly in this country.
Yes,
Because you know that there are
understood.
certain manufacturers that do it. So there should be a
Yes,
list of manufacturers that reside with the Yeah. licensing department, whom, by the way, license these vehicles anyway, so that they know that, okay, there are 15 various brands that we know are going to have manufactured tints at the rear and at the rear windows. And therefore, we're not looking at those particular cars. You're just looking at the front windows.
yes,
But
yeah,
what we have now that's in the Brent. law is that you have to now go and get an exemption, even though the car come that way. It's nonsensical. Yeah.
yeah,
Additionally, with that too, Brent, is the certain cars come in with apart from headlights, extra lights in front. That you, when you buy your vehicle, you have to get a letter stating that the car came this way.
yeah. That's right. And I know the former transport commissioner gave a more or less a blanket exemption stating that, listen here, once any vehicle comes with these extra, and even the confusion between a curb light and a fog light, any of those attachments to the front, and it came with it, what they call a OEM spec, then it would be considered lawful. And unfortunately, somewhere when they go to enforce, there seems to be some sort of gap in understanding that, or persons question the validity of that order to begin with. So sometimes it places the citizen in that state of doubt on
In
whether
an
the status
unfriendly
is legal.
position with regard to state machinery.
Yep.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. So what if a car comes with a fog light? A fog light is what? A crime, some big criminal offense you committed because you have a fog light? I mean, seriously?
yeah. So again, that's the directive of the transport commissioner to try and streamline that. Those issues. I also want to mention. I know one of the issues. Steve Khan had reached out to me. Well, one was over the weekend we had road death where a guy, ran over a pedestrian, but the pedestrian has actually turned into almost mincemeat because of the vehicles coming behind, and the driver was the driver did stop. They were thinking social media or how a person could just drive off, but the driver did stop, and persons have to understand though, it's a tough area of from a public safety standpoint for the police to deal with, because a lot of times these persons are running across the highway and it's a 3 lanes, um depending on which carriageway it is, and at speeds of 100 kilometers an hour. When a lot of these persons are from no fixed place of abode, they run across the highway with just a short pants, and they're very hard to see. So it really puts the driver in an untenable situation.
And we
So
always
we
wonder
are,
they get knocked down under a crosswalk.
and yeah, 'cause underneath crosswalks, underneath sometimes you overpass where they could have used with this pedestrian access as well, and it's tough to target that culture. With regards to, I think you had also asked the question in regards to a video circulating with a where a wrecker hit a pedestrian.
Sure.
I know the Shogunist police have they impounded the vehicle. The driver is supposed to surrender to police today. So it's and those who saw that video, it was circulating. I mean, it was really mind-boggling how he could not see that guy who was actually literally doing his work early in the morning on the road.
Yeah.
So
That brings to the question, Brent. Let's bring up this accident where an individual hit a guy, hit his truck from behind, and he died. He then drove the vehicle by a relative, and then waiting for him to turn himself in. That boggles my mind.
right. So so it didn't happen like that. I just want to be clear. He drove the vehicle by the relative, right? When the police got the information that that's where the vehicle was, he was no longer there. He had already returned to his army base there in South. You remember that's where the interview had to take place, because he was confined to. Remember, they have their own disciplinary procedures too, but it's where the police had to do the interview. As far as I'm aware, the file is had been sent for the DPP, as you know, because any prosecution of members of the armed forces also have to go through the DPP's office.
Brent, just quickly going back to the issue of the tint, do you all have the meters right now on hand so that you all could start this process? And
No,
how long? And if not, how long is it expected to take before
right,
you all start using it?
right. So the police do not have any in hand as yet. I know licensing may have. Um, we I don't want to give a timeline, but there are. I would say I'm giving an operational estimate, knowing what has to be done behind the scenes, that perhaps 2 months before actual enforcement operations can actually begin, because the Ministry of Works really wants to do some heavy sensitization. I know we already have some videos, but what I want to say is we already have, I think if I'm not mistaken, is over 300 officers trained in the use of the 10 meters. So it's just the device distribution. I know that the Ministry of Works already procured some. So it's just a matter of distribution to law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
Because when we spoke with the commissioner, transport commissioner, 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
he said that he had instructed his officers not to pull in any vehicles and deal with this tint thing. Am
Yes.
I mistaken, Paul? I think he said that.
Something around that, yes. Not
Yeah.
valve.
Yeah, exactly. And that's again because it doesn't, you can't deal with that issue of tint when the law requires some sort of quantification measurement. That's the whole purpose of the law.
Mhm.
So any person or law enforcement officer acting to try to deal with this issue will fail. Will fail because, like I said, there's regulation. It's the same thing with for example, we encourage the public to read the regulation, because now there's a new measurement whereby a crack on a windscreen, for example, where if it's just a stone chip, the officers were sometimes quick to say, right, well, that
Yeah.
the
Brent, let
officers
me
were.
ask you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, finish up.
No, I was going to say the officers were quick to just say, well, okay, I have a crack on a stone chip on the windscreen, and that's a defective windscreen. And the law says, no, unless that crack is in some way obscuring the driver's vision. So they were giving for a small little chip on the passenger side.
Mhm.
So it's giving a little bit more clarity on what would really be reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brent,
Reasonable
I wanted
with
to ask again.
TTPS and licensing. Reasonable. I don't know that I would go in the same
Right,
sentence.
same sentence.
I Yeah,
I
well,
want to ask
it's
you
a
about
continuous improvement.
I want to ask you about a lot of vehicles, mainly trucks and tow trucks and so on. They have a billion lights in front of their cars and vehicles that just keep flashing. Isn't that against the law?
Okay, so they in some cases we have stopped tow trucks with those same fancy lights, and they have been granted exemptions. Now, really and truly, those lights, those warning lights, are only supposed to be utilized is when they're in the process of recovery operations, and no other reason, not to just
They
drive
have.
up and down the highway like a patrol. You,
That
you know,
happened.
so it's a breach of their conditions of being granted for those authorization of the lights.
Maybe
Mm.
we could open the lines.
And
Maybe we
can
could
the
also
police
open the
pull them
lines with
over?
Brent. Steve,
Yeah, Brent.
some callers may have some questions that we don't have now. Maybe so we could open the lines if Brent will take some calls.
Sure.
Yeah, Brent.
Mhm.
But I was going to ask you. I
Uh-huh.
lost my train of thought there for a second. All right, so we'll get some calls. Yeah, it's 222-8255. You can give us a call right now. Um, oh, I was going to ask you, and I completely forgot about it. All
That's
right,
all
yeah,
right.
we'll take some calls. 222-8255, toll free North Americans. If you have a question, even though you're in North America, you can give us a call at toll free 866-525-1099 on our message board as well.
Yeah,
And
Brent,
on,
are there designated places? I don't know if you would know. Well, I know Schaffler Auto Services is probably one, where you can check your tint to make sure that you're compliant.
Mhm.
No, I'm not. I'm not too sure where the tin shops are that would have that type of equipment. I'm hoping that they
Yeah.
would market themselves with it though.
Yeah. I know
Our
Shafley Auto
plan.
Services. I know Shafley
Mhm.
Auto Services for once provides that
Yeah.
service. So I know
Yeah.
they do it.
Yeah. And I see
Our
some
plan.
vehicles that
Yeah.
the front windshield, 12 o'clock hot sun, and you can't see anything in that car.
Yeah. Yeah. But even when we set up before, what we were trying to do even with the highway patrols is that we would set up certain times and communicate, go to the malls, saying that if you want to bring your mall, we'll have 2 highway patrol units there. You could bring your cars, and we will check your tint if it's in Gulf City Mall or Mid Center Mall or wherever it is.
Yeah. We do have some calls coming in, Brent. Good morning, caller.
Gentlemen, good morning.
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 Sergeant Batson, as it relates, there's so many things one could ask you, but I'll limit myself to just probably one area. In the recent few years, we have developed or gone to a lane roundabout. And it seems that Trinidadians are still confused with the proper use of these dual lane roundabouts, where people, especially, I can tell you, I was in a little minor accident at the down a roundabout, where people on the right lane or the inner lane coming over the overpass from Kirep would want to swing left from that right lane into the southern main road.
The
And
exit. Yeah.
use the left lane to go around the roundabout to go left or to go into Valsane South and so on, are being crossed by these vehicles. Can you shed some light in terms of what it is your department might be doing to enlighten drivers along with maybe the Ministry of Works and Transport to get it right in terms of what is the correct use of these dual lane? Westmall, I'm sure you can say that you had several accidents that took place where it was done at the Westmall roundabout. I'd like to hear your comments, please, sir.
All right.
Right. So you're correct. There is a gap in education of drivers and the correct use. Even though a lot of people might say it's common sense, but it's not. And it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago we actually did a segment on Beyond the Tape, and one of those segments was correct use of the dual lane roundabouts, and we're explaining to people why it's so important to know where you're going, to occupy it correctly, and to take the correct exit. And we were explaining to people that when you get into the road, let's just say God forbid you ended up in that right lane to go straight, and the person on the outside lane is trying to go around the roundabout while you're trying to exit from the inside lane. So you get blocked in the roundabout. And we had to remind persons, look, listen here, a lot of these incidents are being caused because people are panicking because they just want to force themselves out of the roundabout, even though somebody's in the outside lane blocking them from exiting. And, we have to remind them, hey, it's a roundabout. You just make your circle, you make the full circle, and come back. Once you're in the circle, you're in your safe zone. You just have to go around, then reoccupy lane and choose your exit. It's going to take what 20, maybe even 5 to 10 seconds to make that round and come back out.
Yeah.
So
Another call here, Brent.
yeah.
I think part of what the caller was referencing is that when you must know where you're going,
the exit, correct.
and so you position yourself on the roundabout that is safest for you to exit.
Well, again, you must know where you're going. It's safest to exit, and two, it's so that you do not put other persons, so persons that occupy that incorrect lane on the exit point. So, for example, if the roundabout has 3 exits and you're taking the one to extreme right, you can't be on the outside lane. And again, persons are, in some cases, they're genuinely unaware. So he's right. The state has to do a little bit more to educate persons. The TTPS is working on a video, so I can assure him that. And one of those little video clips has to do with proper occupation of lanes to exit double lane roundabouts.
It requires
I think
signs.
Another call here, Brent.
I think
Let's grab
drivers
this call.
generally know, but I just think it's part of the discourtesy of the Trinidad and Tobago driver that they just figure Wherever I need to go, you will make way for me. Because
I hear you.
I think they logically understand it. Because if you're a driver with any degree of experience, you logically will understand it.
Yeah.
But
Let's
you have
grab
a
this
lot of
call.
discourteous drivers on the roads.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Good topic this morning, gentlemen.
Thank you.
When it comes to hearses, we have to get the exemption for the lights, or when we are doing a funeral, we could use the lights.
Right. So once you get your exemption, remember when you apply to the transport commissioner, he's the only person. And he's not giving you exemption, he's giving you authorization.
Mhm.
And you state the reason for the implementation of these lighting systems on your vehicle. And once that's applied, you have to tell him in your reason why you're using it. High visibility when escorting the body. Also with regards to let persons know it's a slower moving vehicle in the lane and so forth. So your reasons are what you put for the transport commissioner for him to make that decision.
All right.
So right now, if they stop the hearse with the lights on it, will we get charged?
So the answer is you have right. Any lights other than headlamps, indicators, brake lights, tail lights, right? Anything if it's not a OEM manufacturer, anything added onto a vehicle requires authorization. So the answer is that if there's no authorization for these additional lighting systems, you could get ticketed for it. Yes, you could. Fixed penalty notice could be issued.
All right. Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much.
Brent, we spoke about this this week actually, and it is on the priority bus route and maxi taxis that stop on the crosswalk.
Yes. Good. So we want to work a little bit more with transit for them to perhaps understand a little bit more where the law was amended, where drivers can now be ticketed for breaching what they call the crosswalk regulation. So now it is now a violation that is ticketable for any driver to stop, to park their vehicle within the proximities of a crosswalk. You that now is a clear violation. So it's something that we're hoping the transit police, which really that's the enforcement zone, would be more active in doing that, because I think persons that drive on the bus would genuinely forget that really it's a commuter road. It's designed to offload commuters, which now have to cross sometimes north to south across that road. And I find drivers drive on it, and even emergency vehicle drivers, I'm being honest, that they forget, hey, this is actually a pedestrian-like road, where there'll be a lot of pedestrians.
Yeah.
And that's why the speed limit is 65. It's not 80. And it takes into account the amount of persons crossing. So it's definitely an area that persons have to remember that is now a violation. It's interesting because we did an enforcement operation on Arapita Avenue, and as everybody's aware, weekends people just park where they want, and in some cases they park on the crosswalks. And while the officer was ticketing the driver started to get agitated, saying, "Oh, but there ain't nobody crossing here right now. What's the big deal?" So and those are the things you're going up against. That's not the point, sir. This is the safe haven area for the pedestrian. All right,
That's
and
exactly what Richard was referring to just now. We just have
yeah.
a very lawless culture when it comes to driving. And anybody who parking on a crosswalk and arguing against that ticket, he should get a next one too. For being
Even
an idiot.
I noticed even in the San Juan area, maxis stop on, if they're heading into Port of Spain, they stop on the left. So if cars are heading westbound, they have a red light, they come on the oncoming lane. In Quebec,
Right, yes.
in Tunapuna, when they pass the traffic light, the back of the maxi is still blocking the road, the intersection.
Yeah, and it's just courtesy, it's just a little bit of courtesy. That's what we ask you. I always say, Trinidad Tobago is a beautiful country, and for us to get it back where we want it to be, it requires some work. But it seems like nobody wants to do the work.
Yeah. All right,
And
gentlemen.
with regard to the issue of, I don't know how much you can talk about this particular topic, Brent, but the issue of stolen vehicles, because I saw a list in the newspapers recently where they listed the most popular cars to be stolen of course, the TIDA reigns as king of stolen cars.
Oh, it's a tie with
Um,
the Tita and the Aqua.
and the Aqua, TIDA and the
Yeah.
Aqua. I think Honda Cities were there,
Yes.
Toyota Corollas, and well, the Toyota Aqua, of course. But I'm just wondering, there was a point where the TTPS seemed to be pretty much in control, in terms of your stolen vehicle squad, in reducing and minimizing the amount of vehicles that were stolen. There seemed to be a time where there was a sense that was being reduced dramatically. But
Under
now
Mr. Swamba.
but now it seems to be an uptick in terms of
Yeah.
cars being stolen. As I said, I don't know if you are equipped to answer that. And what methodology is it? Is it on the radar of the TTPS to start reducing the amount of vehicle thefts, and do they have plans to mitigate that?
Oh, definitely. So what has been very effective, and I know um it might cost a little bit more, but what has been really, really effective is persons who invest in a GPS system. And the if you are purchasing a vehicle where the aqua is stolen from everything from the batteries to even parts, because as vehicles become more popular, even when the parts become actually harder to get because of its popularity, the it becomes an easy target. I don't know if you all saw the video on social media where a vehicle pulled up and ripped off a guy's bumper, and they took the whole bumper and threw it in the trunk and left. So it really goes to show almost a level of absolute animal type behavior when it comes to grabbing these car parts. So the answer is yes. For example, we get more intelligence sharing now on some of the areas, the hot vehicles. But what has made a major difference is persons investing in GPS, and investing in anti-theft devices, because it makes a major difference when you call out. We would be on the police wireless sets, and we actually have the owner tracking, telling us where that vehicle is on their phone, to intercept that vehicle. When we those grabs try to ditch those guys try to ditch that vehicle as soon as they even get an inkling that they're being pursued. So the answer is yes. Some of the anti-crime methods include intelligence-led policing in some of those high theft areas. The tough parts, of example, are outside events. People, there's only so much car park spaces. They have the CPL, no, not the CPL, but the ICC cricket is coming up. There's going to be a park and ride system, a very strict park and ride system. Yes, you could drop off, but you could only park and use the public transport to get into the event. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw one of the venues for the parking will be the South Park area, the mall itself. So you are correct. There's definitely an area where it seems to be prevalent. I know two people that lost their vehicles over the weekend, two Titas in the Cuba area. So I will just say until a definite dent could be made in regards to the ring itself, please invest in prevention.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is where we have to leave it, but I'll have to get you back in.